He asked me to keep it a secret, but what we did that night still haunts me. I didn't mean for it to happen. I never planned to fall for him. He was my closest friend, the one person I trusted more than anyone else. The way he looked at me that night, it felt like everything we'd never said finally rose to the surface. But when it was over, he said 5 words I can't unhear. "You have to keep this secret." And I did. I kept my mouth shut. I smiled in front of everyone like nothing happened. But every night since then, I can still feel the weight of that moment pressing against my chest. And sometimes I ask myself, did he mean it? Or did he just get scared? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of this story. Because what happened between us didn't just change me, it changed everything. It started like any other Friday night. We had this thing, me and Zach, where we'd meet at his place after work, grab takeout from the Thai spot down the street, and crash on his couch watching terrible movies we'd seen 100 times. No pressure, no expectations. That was the unspoken deal between us for years. But that night, something felt different. I showed up later than usual, rain dripping from the sleeves of my jacket. Zach opened the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, barefoot, hair slightly messy like he'd just gotten out of the shower. His apartment smelled like lemongrass and rice, and for some reason I couldn't quite explain, my heart kicked in my chest when he smiled at me. "You're soaked," he said, grabbing a towel from the kitchen. "You really walked here?" "Bus dropped me early," I shrugged. "Didn't want to miss movie night." He handed me the towel, and when our fingers brushed, he didn't pull away right away. It was a small thing, nothing anyone else would have noticed. But I did. The couch was the same. Old cushions, one lopsided pillow, and that stupid fuzzy blanket we fought over like children. We sat close, like always. Maybe a little too close that time. His knee brushed mine, and neither of us moved. Halfway through the movie, he leaned his head on my shoulder. He had never done that before. I didn't say anything. I didn't even breathe. I just sat there, letting the warmth of him seep into my skin like a memory I knew I'd never be able to erase. "Hey," he said after a while, his voice quieter than usual. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think we've changed?" I turned my head slowly, unsure what he meant. "Changed how?" "I don't know. Just, lately, I feel like we're different. Like, you see me different." I looked down at him. The way his eyes didn't quite meet mine. The way his hand was just a few inches from mine on the couch cushion. And I lied. "I don't know what you mean." He nodded, lips pressing into a thin line. "Yeah. Never mind." We didn't speak much after that. Just watched the movie in silence, both of us pretending to laugh at the dumb scenes. But I felt it. The electricity. The question neither of us wanted to answer. It was almost midnight when I stood up to leave. Zach looked up at me like he didn't want me to go, and I didn't want to. "I can crash here if you want," I said, too fast. He blinked. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to." I nodded, avoiding his eyes. Too late to bus back anyway. He threw me the spare blanket and walked toward the bedroom. "Night, man." Night. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering why my chest felt so tight. 20 minutes later, the hallway light flicked on. Footsteps. Then, him. Zach stood in the doorway, shirtless now, looking at me like he didn't know whether to speak or run. "I can't sleep," he said. I sat up slowly. "What's going on?" He walked over and sat beside me on the couch, silent for a moment. Then he whispered, "I think about it too." My throat tightened. Think about what? He looked at me, really looked. You. Then he leaned in. And I didn't stop him. His lips brushed mine, soft, hesitant. And for the first few seconds, it felt like a dream. We didn't move fast. We didn't talk. Just stayed there, frozen, his hand resting lightly on my chest like he was afraid I'd disappear. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathless, I opened my mouth to say something. Anything. But he beat me to it. His voice was low, scared. You have to keep this a secret. I stared at him. He stood, avoiding eye contact, walking back to the bedroom like it never happened. And I was left alone on the couch, feeling more seen than I ever had, and more invisible than ever before. For the rest of the weekend, we didn't talk about it. Not the kiss, not the way he'd looked at me before disappearing into his bedroom. And definitely not those 5 words that still rang in my ears like a warning bell. You have to keep this a secret. I left early the next morning. He was still asleep. Or pretending to be. I didn't have the guts to find out which. The bus ride back to my apartment was quiet and cold, even though the sun was shining through the windows. I kept my hands in my pockets the entire time, trying to hold on to something. Warmth, stability, my sanity. I wanted to tell myself it was just a moment. One mistake. But the truth was, I didn't regret it. I just didn't understand it. That Monday, when we met for coffee like we always did before work, he acted like nothing had happened. Try the caramel one, Zach said, handing me a pastry with a smirk. You always go for boring flavors. I stared at him, blinking, unsure how his voice could sound so light after what he'd said, after what we'd done. I like boring, I replied, taking the pastry anyway. He leaned back in his chair, sipping his coffee like he hadn't kissed me 2 nights ago. Like he hadn't told me to keep it hidden. I tried to play along, but every little thing he did felt loaded. The way his eyes lingered, the way he touched my wrist when he laughed, the way he leaned in, just a little too close when he talked, and then pulled back like he realized it. It was like he was testing the boundaries of what we now were, and I was failing the test, miserably. Want to come over Thursday? He asked as we walked back to the train. I got a bottle of that wine you liked. I stopped walking. Are we just not gonna talk about it? He paused, turning to me. His expression didn't shift. Talk about what? You know what? A beat passed. Then, in that same maddeningly calm tone, he said, I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. My heart sank so fast I actually felt it in my knees. You weren't drunk, I said quietly. He looked away. Look, I get it. You want clarity. But I don't have that right now. So what was it, Zach? I asked, voice rising slightly. Just a slip? Just one of those bro moments that doesn't count unless someone finds out? He didn't answer right away. Then he said something that broke me a little. You said you'd keep it a secret. The way he said it, like he was reminding me of a contract I'd agreed to under duress, made something shift inside me. I didn't reply. I just walked away. The days that followed were a blur of silence and small talk. We texted less. I avoided coffee. He avoided explanations. But the distance didn't help. It only made me want more. The next time I saw him was at a mutual friend's birthday party the following weekend. He was already there when I arrived, beer in hand, smiling too easily, laughing too loud. I hated how good he looked. I hated how I still noticed. He spotted me across the room and waved like we hadn't fought, like we were still us. And I played along, because I didn't know how not to. We talked in a corner, away from the noise. "I missed you this week," he said, barely above the music. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to ask what that meant. But before I could, someone called his name. A girl, tall and beautiful, grabbing his hand and pulling him back toward the crowd. He didn't look back at me. Not once. I stood there for a long time, beer untouched in my hand, watching him dance with her, laugh with her, be normal. And I wondered, was I just a secret he kissed on a couch? Or was he just too scared to let me be more? I left without saying goodbye. And when I got home, there was a message waiting on my phone. It was from him. "Can we talk? I think I made a mistake." I stared at his message for a long time. "Can we talk? I think I made a mistake." It sat there on my screen like a loaded weapon. I didn't respond right away. Maybe I was afraid of what he'd say, or worse, afraid of what I'd say back. But by the time the sun set, I was already walking to his place. Not because I knew what I wanted to say, but because I knew I couldn't keep pretending this wasn't eating me alive. He opened the door before I knocked, like he'd been waiting. He looked nervous. I stepped inside. We didn't talk for the first few minutes. He poured 2 glasses of wine, set one in front of me, and sat across from me at the small kitchen table. I could feel his eyes on me, even when I wasn't looking. "I shouldn't have said what I said," he started, voice low, "about being drunk. That was a lie." My fingers tightened around the glass. I didn't say anything. He looked down. I panicked. I didn't know what it meant, and I thought if I ignored it long enough, maybe it would just go away. "And now?" I finally asked. He exhaled slowly. "Now, I don't want it to go away." There was a pause. Then he added, "But I still don't know what to do with it." I looked at him, and for the first time I saw the fear behind his eyes. Not shame, not regret. Just someone trying to make sense of something that didn't fit the version of himself he'd been carrying his whole life. "You don't have to define it right now," I said carefully. "But you don't get to pretend it didn't happen. Not to me." He nodded, eyes shining a little. "I know." We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that doesn't hurt. Not exactly, but wraps around your throat and makes you feel everything all at once. "I miss how we used to be," he said after a while. I swallowed hard. "Me too." He stood up suddenly. "Come here." I didn't ask why. I just followed. He led me to the living room, to the same couch where it had all started. The same blanket was still draped over the backrest. The same ghost of that night still lived in that space. He sat. I sat beside him. This time it was him who reached for my hand first. His fingers closed around mine slowly, carefully, like he wasn't sure I'd let him. But I did. Then his thumb started tracing slow circles on the back of my hand. My heart stuttered. "I've never done this with a guy," he said quietly. "But with you, it doesn't feel wrong. It just feels quiet. Like I don't have to try." His words hit deeper than I expected. We didn't speak for a while. Just sat there, hand in hand, the world outside his apartment melting away. Then it happened. He turned toward me, and before I could process what he was doing, he leaned in again. But this time the kiss wasn't hesitant. It was deep, intentional, like he'd made a choice, maybe not a public one, but a real one. And when he pulled away, his hand didn't leave mine. Neither of us smiled. We didn't need to. The silence between us had changed. He leaned his head on my shoulder again, like that first night. And I let him. His breath was warm against my neck. His hand rested on my leg, and I knew. If I shifted even an inch, if I looked at him for too long, something would happen. Something more. But I didn't move. Neither did he. It was enough just to be there. Close. Safe. At least. Until he said the next thing. I haven't told anyone. I turned my head slightly. Told them what? He hesitated. That I'm confused. That something's happening between us. That you might be the only person who's ever made me feel this way. The air grew heavier. And I'm scared, he whispered. But I don't want to lose you again. I could have answered. I should have. But at that exact moment, my phone buzzed on the table. I leaned forward and saw the screen. My ex. Calling. He looked down and saw it too. And just like that, the quiet was gone. I didn't answer the call. I watched the screen until it stopped ringing, the name still glowing there like a memory I thought I had buried deeper than it actually was. Zach stayed quiet. His hand slowly slid away from mine. I turned to him. It's nothing. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't look like nothing. It's my ex, I said. We haven't spoken in months. He nodded slowly, but something behind his eyes dimmed. You gonna call him back? I hesitated. That was all it took. He stood up from the couch, walking toward the kitchen under the pretense of grabbing water, but I could feel the wall going up between us again. Fast, solid, cold. I followed him. Zach! He opened the fridge. You don't owe me an explanation. It's your life. That's not fair. Isn't it? He shot back, voice low. You've been waiting for me to make up my mind, to figure my feelings out. But the second something else shakes loose, you hesitate. I stared at him, stunned. This isn't about him. Then why didn't you block his number if he meant nothing? That one stung more than I expected. I thought I had, I said honestly. I don't even know why he's calling, but I didn't answer. Isn't that what matters? Zach leaned on the counter, arms crossed, looking at the floor like it held all the answers he didn't want to ask me for. You said you were scared, I added, taking a step closer. You said you didn't want to lose me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. He looked up. You sure? I nodded. But truthfully, I wasn't. Not because I didn't want to be, but because part of me knew that call had cracked something open. And what made it worse was that Zach had seen it in real time. The next morning, I texted my ex. Just one line. Why did you call? He replied in less than 5 minutes. I've been thinking about you. I know I messed things up, but I can't stop wondering if we gave up too soon. And just like that, I was pulled backward into a place I didn't want to revisit. I stared at the words for way too long, then deleted the entire thread. I didn't tell Zach. That weekend, our mutual friends threw a small gathering at this rooftop bar downtown. Everyone was there. Drinks, music, stupid inside jokes we hadn't outgrown. Zach showed up wearing that green jacket I always liked. He smiled when he saw me, but it wasn't the same. There was hesitation in it, caution. I tried to brush it off. We stayed close all night, but something was off between us, like a song playing slightly out of tune. Then, as I walked back from the bar with 2 drinks in hand, I saw him talking to someone. A guy I didn't recognize. Taller, confident, laughing too loud. Zach laughed too. Something inside me clenched. I stood there for a second, then turned around and handed the drinks to someone else. He found me later, sitting near the railing, looking out over the city. You okay? he asked. I didn't answer right away. He sat beside me, letting the silence stretch. Do you like him? I asked without looking at him. Zach blinked. What? The guy you were talking to. He frowned. No. Why? I shrugged. You looked comfortable, laughing, like yourself. He exhaled hard. Is that what you think? That I'm out here trying to replace you while you're still texting your ex? I deleted the messages, I said. I didn't answer him again. Zach looked at me. Then why does it still feel like you're halfway out the door? I turned to face him, heart thudding. Because I'm scared too, I said. You're not the only one. His face softened for a moment. Then he whispered, So what do we do now? I didn't know how to answer that, because before I could, my phone buzzed again. And this time, Zach saw the name on the screen before I could lock it. His face fell. He stood up slowly. I thought you deleted him. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I can't do this, he said quietly, and walked away. And I just sat there, phone still buzzing in my hand with the city glowing behind me and a sinking feeling in my chest that maybe I just lost him. He didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. Texted him, left on read. No reply. That night, I walked to his building and stood across the street staring up at his window. It was dark. No sign of him. I had a million things I wanted to say. That it wasn't about my ex. That he was the only one who made me feel real. That I'd been scared because he mattered too much. 2 days later, he showed up at my door. No, hello. Just, did you choose him? My chest tightened. No. He blinked. Then why did it take you so long to choose me? I couldn't answer, but when he turned to leave, I grabbed his wrist and kissed him, right there in the doorway, like the world didn't exist. He kissed me back, but when he pulled away, he said, This either changes everything, or it changes nothing. No conditions, no labels, no promises, but he stayed. We slept on the couch, just like before. Only this time, he held me like he didn't want morning to come, like letting go might make everything disappear. In the days that followed, we didn't define it. But we talked, really talked, about fear, about timing, about how hard it is to want something you're still learning how to accept. He told me I was the only one who ever made him feel safe to be unsure. I told him love doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes it just takes courage. One night we walked through the city. He took my hand, not in secret, not in the shadows, right there, in front of the world. And nothing happened. No one stared. No one cared. Except me. Because that moment meant everything. Back at my place, before falling asleep, he turned to me and said, I don't want to be a secret anymore. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't something we needed to hide. This was the beginning of everything.